Hey class, welcome back. We're still talking about the 1900s or the 1920s, and we are talking about prohibition today. And prohibition, when I say the word prohibition, it means that they outlawed selling alcohol. Okay, you couldn't purchase alcohol during this time. It made it actual an amendment to the Constitution. All right, they made it a law, and then later on, in the 1930s, they changed it and did away with the amendment for prohibition. But that's what we're talking about today: prohibition, how it came about, what were the effects of it. We're taking away people's alcohol, and this happened like in the 1920s, like I said, 1900 through 1920s. So here we go. It was a period of time when it was illegal to sell or to make alcoholic beverages like beer, wine, and liquor. All right, that's what prohibition means.
What was Prohibition? Prohibition was a period of time when it was illegal to sell or make alcoholic beverages like beer, wine, and liquor.
All right, so when did it start? Throughout the early 1900s, there was a movement called the temperance movement, and that tried to stop people from drinking alcohol. And there's some ladies here, you see, lips that touch liquor shall not touch ours. That's what it says there. People who joined this movement believed alcohol was leading cause in the destruction of families and moral corruption. So they really wanted alcohol to be gone from people's everyday lives. So they tried to stop people from drinking alcohol.
When did it start? Throughout the early 1900s, there was a movement called the temperance movement that tried to stop people from drinking alcohol. People who joined this movement believed alcohol was the leading cause in the destruction of families and moral corruption.
So during World War I, President Woodrow Wilson, this man right here, all right, he put an end to the manufacture of alcoholic drinks in order to ration grain. This was during World War. We joined World War I in 1917. All right, and but that grain was needed for food, so he put an end to it so that it would help ration the grain and have stuff for food. So it gave the temperance movement though a lot of momentum. And on January 29th, 1919, the 18th Amendment to the Constitution, it was ratified, making alcoholic drinks illegal in the United States.
When did it start? Continued. During World War I, President Woodrow Wilson put an end to the manufacture of alcoholic drinks in order to ration grain that was needed for food. This gave the temperance movement a lot of momentum, and on January 29, 1919, the 18th Amendment was ratified, making alcoholic drinks illegal in the United States.
All right. So when they made everything illegal, people say, you know what? We're going to get our alcohol anyway, one way or another. And you had all kinds of things that came about. You had bootleggers. All right. You had places where they would go drink anyway. All right. Then you had organized crime came about because of this. And one of these, like I said, was bootleggers. Despite the new law, many people still wanted to have alcoholic drinks. So people that made alcohol and they smuggled it into cities or the bars were called bootleggers. All right. You see some bootleggers, they'd make moonshine and make all kinds of alcohol. Some bootleggers sold homemade whiskey called moonshine or bathtub gin. And bootleggers would often have modified cars. They'd make their cars really fast. All right, so they could outrun the federal agents that were trying to catch them during this time. They were called bootleggers. People that made the alcohol and smuggled it into bars were called bootleggers.
Bootleggers. Despite the new law, many people still wanted to have alcoholic drinks. People that made alcohol and smuggled it into cities or to bars were called bootleggers. Some bootleggers sold homemade whiskey called moonshine or bathtub gin. Bootleggers would often have modified cars to help them outrun the federal agents trying to catch them.
All right. So speakeasies. Speakeasies were bars, all right? They were a secret bar, all right, that opened up to sell illegal alcoholic beverages to people. All right. You had to do it in secret because if you didn't, they would get caught, they'd get taken to jail. So they usually bought the alcohol from bootleggers. And there were lots of speakeasies in most towns throughout the United States. They became a major part of the American culture in the 1920s.
Speakeasies. In many cities, a new type of secret establishment began to spring up called speakeasy. Speakeasy sold illegal alcoholic beverages. They usually bought the alcohol from bootleggers. There were lots of speakeasies in most towns throughout the United States. They became a major part of the American culture in the 1920s.
And like I said, with all this, with the alcohol being prohibited, being taken away, in came organized crime. You have this man over here. This is Al Capone, all right? So selling illegal alcoholic drinks became a very profitable business. They could make a lot of money. What I always tell y'all, it's always about money, right? For organized crime groups. And one of the most famous gangsters of all time was Al Capone of Chicago. This guy right here. Or historians estimate that his crime business made as much as $60 million a year selling alcohol and running speakeasies that were illegal. Okay. And there was a significant rise in violent gang crimes during the Prohibition years. So organized crime came up during the 1920s when alcohol was made illegal.
Organized crime, selling illegal alcoholic drinks became a very profitable business for organized crime groups. One of the most famous gangsters of all time was Al Capone of Chicago. Historians estimate that his crime business made as much as $60 million a year selling alcohol and running speakeasies. There was a significant rise in violent gang crimes during the Prohibition years.
All right. Prohibition comes to the end. By the end of the 1920s, people began to realize Prohibition wasn't working. Okay, it didn't work the whole time because people fell lazy to drink alcohol anyway. People were still drinking alcohol, but crime had increased dramatically. If you look right here, crime had gone up, kept going up. Other negative effects include people drinking stronger alcohol because it was cheaper to smuggle, and the rise in cost of running the local police department trying to catch all these people who were selling illegal alcohol. So they finally decided, hey, Prohibition is going to come to an end.
Prohibition comes to an end. By the end of the 1920s, people began to realize that Prohibition wasn't working. People were still drinking alcohol, but crime had increased dramatically. Other negative effects include people drinking stronger alcohol because it was cheaper to smuggle, and the rise in the cost of running the local police department.
All right. So when the Great Depression hit in the early 1930s, or early in 1929, but in the early 30s, people saw ending Prohibition. They say, hey, if we end this, it's an opportunity to create jobs. We can raise taxes on legally sold alcohol. So in 1933, the 21st Amendment to the Constitution was ratified, and it repealed the 18th Amendment, and it ended Prohibition. So Prohibition lasted for 13 years, y'all. 13 years. That was happening in 1920s when Prohibition was first put into effect, and then in 1933 is when it ended. So 13 years it was illegal to sell or make alcohol. But it ended in 1933 with the 21st Amendment.
Repealing Prohibition. When the Great Depression hit in the early 30s, people saw ending Prohibition as the opportunity to create jobs and to raise taxes from legally sold alcohol. In 1933, the 21st Amendment was ratified that repealed the 18th Amendment and ended Prohibition.
All right, comprehension questions. What did Prohibition make illegal? What did it make illegal? A, tobacco, B, alcohol, or C, coffee? It made alcohol illegal to sell and to make.
Ding, ding, ding.
Number 2, what amendment to the Constitution started Prohibition? Which one of these amendments started it? They had to ratify the Constitution, make it a law. And which one of them was it? Was it the First Amendment? Was it the 10th Amendment? Or was it the 18th Amendment? It was the 18th Amendment to the Constitution.
Ding, ding, ding. We have a winner.
That's what started Prohibition. Number 3, what was the movement called that pushed the idea of Prohibition? Was it A, the temperance movement, B, the civil rights, or C, Renaissance? It was A, the temperance movement. These ladies here did not believe that alcohol should be given it. They felt, hey, it morally corrupted people. It destroyed families, and they were pushing for it long about the time Woodrow Wilson had started rationing grain for World War One. So they gained momentum and then they ratified it. So the temperance movement's what it's called.
Ding, ding, ding. We have a winner.
Number 4, what were people called that smuggled and sold illegal alcoholic drinks? So they sold it or created it and sold it. What were they called? Were they called speakeasies, bootleggers, or abolitionists? They were called the ones that made the alcohol and smuggled it and sold it to the other places were called bootleggers.
Ding, ding, ding. We have a winner.
Bootleggers, speakeasies are where they sold it to, which were secret bars. Number 5, what were businesses called that sold alcoholic drinks during Prohibition? Oh, I just went over that. Y'all should know this one. A, bootleggers, B, abolitionists, or C, the speakeasies. They were called speakeasies. They were secret bars. They had to run them secretly because if they got caught, then guess what? They were going to jail.
We have a winner.
Called speakeasies. Number 6, who ran much of the illegal alcoholic business? And we're going to talk about him more with organized crime and stuff. We talk about them. Was it A, speakeasies, B, bootleggers, or C, Al Capone and organized crime? It was C, Al Capone and organized crime.
Ding, ding, ding. We have a winner.
All right. That's it for Prohibition, or for right now. I mean, we're going to talk about Al Capone and talk about the organized crime stuff here too. And that'll go right along with Prohibition during that time and the 1920s. But that's all for today. I will see you back next time. You all have a very good day.